What if I told you that the root of all your stress and suffering isn't the world around you, but something within yourself? Have you ever wondered why, despite everything you try, you just can't seem to find lasting peace? Could ignorance be the answer? The Buddha once said that ignorance is the ultimate cause of suffering. What does that truly mean? And how can understanding this transform your life? In the hustle and bustle of daily life, we often find ourselves trapped in cycles of stress, confusion, and dissatisfaction. We search for the cause of our struggles in external circumstances, our relationships, our jobs, or the world around us. But what if the key to ending our suffering lies not in changing these things, but in transforming how we perceive and understand them? According to the Buddha, ignorance is the ultimate cause of stress and suffering. But what kind of ignorance is he referring to? It's not just a general lack of knowledge, but a very specific ignorance, the ignorance of the Four Noble Truths. The Buddha's teachings on ignorance and wisdom highlight a fundamental aspect of our human experience. We suffer because we don't fully understand the nature of stress, its causes, and how to end it. In this exploration, we'll uncover how ignorance affects our daily lives and how, through understanding the Four Noble Truths, we can start to alleviate suffering and move toward lasting peace. What is ignorance? Ignorance, as the Buddha defines it, is not merely a lack of information. It's a deeper, more profound ignorance about how the world works. Specifically, it's ignorance about the Four Noble Truths. The Pali word for ignorance, avidya, is the opposite of vidya, which means knowledge, but also skill, as in the skill of a doctor, an animal trainer, or any craftsman. The Buddha's insight goes beyond just saying that people lack knowledge about the Four Noble Truths. He's saying we lack the skill to deal with them effectively. This ignorance causes suffering because we don't know how to handle or resolve the stress we encounter. The Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths are central to the Buddha's teachings on ending suffering. The first truth is the reality of stress, or dukkha. Stress encompasses everything from minor tension to extreme suffering, including birth, aging, sickness, and death, things that everyone experiences. The second truth identifies the cause of stress, which is craving or attachment, our constant desire for things to be different than they are. The third truth reveals that there is a way to cease this stress by letting go of craving and attachment. Finally, the fourth truth shows us the path that leads to the cessation of stress, the Noble Eightfold Path. When the Buddha first shared these truths, he spoke of his full awakening as a realization of these truths on three levels: recognizing the truths themselves, understanding the skills necessary to address them, and mastering those skills to achieve liberation from suffering. Through this, we understand that it's not enough to simply know the Four Noble Truths. We must also develop the wisdom and skill to apply them to our lives. Understanding the Four Truths, the Buddha outlined these truths with precision, identifying specific aspects of our human condition. He started by describing stress through examples: birth, aging, illness, death, sorrow, and despair. These experiences represent the most common forms of suffering we face. He then identified 5 categories of clinging that contribute to stress: clinging to physical form, to feelings of pleasure or pain, to perceptions or mental labels, to thought constructs, and to sensory consciousness. The cause of stress, the Buddha taught, lies in 3 types of craving: craving for sensual pleasure, craving for an identity in the world, and craving for one's identity and experiences to be destroyed. These cravings lead us to act in ways that perpetuate our suffering. The cessation of stress comes from renouncing these cravings, releasing attachment and desire for things to be different from how they are. The path to the cessation of stress is the Noble Eightfold Path, which provides practical steps for addressing the root causes of suffering. These include right view, right resolve, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, the skills to end stress. These 4 noble truths are not just theoretical concepts. They are categories for understanding and diagnosing the problem of stress in our lives. Instead of viewing our experiences in terms of self and others, or through the lens of likes and dislikes, we begin to see everything through the lens of stress, where it exists, what causes it, and how to end it. This understanding shifts the way we approach life. Stress is not something we are merely subjected to. It is something we do, created by our intentions. Once we recognize this, we can start to develop the necessary skills to manage and reduce stress. The skill with regard to stress is to comprehend it to the point where we no longer respond with passion, aversion, or delusion. We can acknowledge its presence without letting it control us. To perfect this skill, we must abandon the causes of stress, realize its cessation, and develop the path to ending it. As we refine our understanding and practice, we begin to free ourselves from the cycle of suffering. The role of concentration and mindfulness. Concentration is one of the key practices in the path toward ending stress. When you develop concentration, you do not just observe the arising and passing of thoughts and feelings. Instead, you actively cultivate and refine your concentration, making it steadier, subtler, and more solid. In doing so, you also develop other factors of the Eightfold Path, such as right mindfulness and right effort. This cultivation of concentration is not about force or control. It's about being present, being aware, and being one with the moment. Over time, as you develop these skills, you begin to notice subtler levels of stress and craving, allowing you to address them before they manifest more intensely. As you continue on this path, you will gradually peel away layers of ignorance. You'll start to see the nature of stress more clearly and respond to it more effectively. The process of awakening is a gradual unfolding, where you become increasingly sensitive to the subtleties of your mind and how it shapes your experience of suffering. Through the wisdom of the Buddha, we see that ignorance is not merely a lack of knowledge, but a lack of skill in handling the realities of life. By learning the 4 noble truths and developing the skills to address them, we can begin to free ourselves from suffering and find true peace. Now, let's dive deeper into how these teachings can be applied practically in our lives. How can we develop the skills necessary to end stress and suffering? Let's explore this in the next part of our journey. In the previous part, we explored the gradual path to awakening, where we learned to cultivate concentration and mindfulness. Now, let's dive deeper into how full awareness of the Four Noble Truths leads us to a deeper understanding of stress, craving, and the ultimate freedom from suffering. As you continue on your path, you begin to see more clearly why you have suffered from stress all these years. It wasn't just about the external circumstances, but about your lack of understanding, the inability to see the connection between the cravings you indulged in and the stress that weighed you down. You didn't recognize how the very activities you enjoyed were actually a source of stress. As you abandon the causes of these other forms of stress, you begin to realize that even within your concentration, there are still many layers of doing, more layers of stress. At this point, you reach a critical realization: the craving for certain activities, no matter how pleasant they may seem, must also be relinquished. This is when full awakening occurs. It's not just about letting go of the obvious forms of craving. It's about uncovering and releasing even the subtlest forms of attachment that still linger beneath the surface. Only then can you truly experience liberation from suffering. The gradual path to awakening, the path to full awakening, is necessarily gradual. This is because the sensitivity required to perceive and understand the subtleties of your cravings, your stress, and your attachments takes time to develop. Moreover, this process involves developing skills that you will only abandon once they have fulfilled their purpose. For example, if you abandoned your craving for concentration before fully developing it, your mind would never be able to reach the level where it could genuinely and completely release even the smallest traces of stress. As your skills converge and mature, the awakening they foster becomes sudden. The Buddha compared this process to the continental shelf off the coast of India. A gradual slope followed by a sudden drop-off. After that drop-off, no trace of mental stress remains. This is the point when you truly know that you have mastered your skills. And at that moment, you also fully grasp the Four Noble Truths, the true understanding of craving and stress. Craving is something you experience every single day. It's in the food you desire, the attention you seek, the approval you crave. But until you have completely abandoned craving, you don't really know it. You may experience stress for years, even decades, but you won't truly understand it until you have comprehended it to the point where passion, aversion, and delusion no longer cloud your mind. This deep understanding is a transformative experience. It's not until you reach this stage that you can say you have truly grasped the nature of stress and craving. Even as you develop greater awareness and ease through the Four Noble Truths, you don't fully understand their significance until you've tasted the fruits of their full mastery. The Buddha himself said that the knowledge he gained during his awakening was like all the leaves in the forest, the knowledge he imparted to his students. The Four Noble Truths was like a handful of leaves. He restricted himself to teaching only what was necessary for his students to reach their own awakening. The role of the raft, Navigating the journey, to use another analogy, the Four Noble Truths are like a raft that carries you across the river of suffering. You need to focus all your attention on the raft while you're crossing, as it's the only tool that will get you to the other side. But once you have crossed, you no longer need the raft. This is the same with the knowledge of the Four Noble Truths. They are a means to an end, not the end itself. Their purpose is to guide you to a place beyond suffering and stress. But once you have reached that place, you no longer need the raft. Judging your realization, the Four Noble Truths also provide a standard for judging any realizations you encounter along the way. How can you know if your understanding is genuine? The Buddha taught that you should always ask yourself, is there any stress remaining in the mind? If even the slightest trace of stress is still present, then your realization is not complete. The skills you develop through mindfulness and concentration sharpen your sensitivity to the smallest forms of stress and ignorance. Without this sensitivity, you could easily mistake an intensely luminous state of concentration for something beyond it, something more profound. The luminosity of concentration may blind you, making you think that you have reached the end. But when you truly know what you are doing, you will recognize freedom from doing when you encounter it. This recognition is a profound moment, for when you finally experience that freedom, you realize something even deeper. The greatest gift you can offer others is not just your wisdom, but the skills that can help them encounter this freedom for themselves. As you continue on your journey toward awakening, remember that the path is gradual, but the freedom it leads to is sudden and profound. With the knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, you can begin to break free from the layers of craving and stress that have held you captive. Embrace these teachings and develop the skills that will lead you toward a life of peace, clarity, and liberation. If you found insight in today's wisdom, consider subscribing for more teachings on how to live with mindfulness and clarity. Your journey to true freedom begins when you look within and apply these truths in your life.